In fact, on the 3rd of July, the news of Reuters, the foreign or the international news agency's official account being banned in India, triggered a huge firestorm. Activists, journalists, opposition, and even the other government critics cried censorship. Almost 24 hours later, the accounts were unblocked and its content was available to users in India. But here's the biggest twist. The Voice of X's global government affairs team said that the Indian government ordered X to block 3,000 or 2,355 accounts in India, including international news outlets like Reuters and Reuters World under Section 69A of the IT Act. X claimed that the government demanded immediate action within 1 hour without providing justification and required the accounts to remain blocked until further notice. Now, here's what the government says to counter X's version. Was there a blocking order? The government says that there was no order on the 3rd of July. X says that Modi government gave blocking orders. Also on the aspect of whether the government wrote, in fact, the government says they wrote to X on the 5th of July 2025. X says that this implies pressure forced action. Let's also look at the fact that the government comes out to say that X took 21 hours to restore the account. X says that implies that it acted immediately in this entire case. Government says there was no such intention of censorship. X comes out to say that it's concerned about censorship happening here in India. So these are some of the points of view that have been put out from the statements from both sides. But viewers, one cannot ignore the political significance of this entire tussle. Remember, we have seen various political parties battling it out on this entire issue. We have looked at what exactly has transpired in terms of the various actions that have come in. Of course, Elon Musk's platform, that is X, has been in the past also accused of all sorts of measures to try and control the narrative. However, we have the Congress party, which has called it an embarrassment to the nation under the Modi government. We've seen TMC echo similar sentiments and calling it a disgrace for the centre. Sena UBT calling it an absolutely cringeworthy and immature act by the government, even after the government's counter to X. So the question that many are asking is the opposition latching on to X's version only to target the Prime Minister or the government, or is there more to it than meets the eye?
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
They've introduced our panelists. We have Manish Bharyat, political analyst, joining us. Also joining us is advocate Kapil Madan, Tushar Gupta and Anish Gawande continue from debate number 1. Manish, let me start with you. You have a situation where, the X has officially come out. They have given a position about 48 hours after the entire controversy, and they have directly accused the government of an attempt at blocking this handle and several others. Why would one not take that at face value is a question that the opposition is asking, and they are saying this is nothing but an attempt at censorship.
Absolutely not. Good evening to you and my co-panelists and all the viewers. You would know that, without casting personal aspersion, but who runs X? So X is also, a lot of times Western media, they kind of look at themselves as holy cow. So whatever comes from Western media, we should not just take it, blindly. I think we have to trust our government. And what is the role of the government? The role of the government is irrespective of any kind of a media. One has to maintain social harmony, and one has to ensure that the rules of this country are followed. So wherever and whatever the case like this, now even in case if you look at Reuters, 2 of its subsidiary, they were not blocked. So it was not something that the government ordered that it has to be blocked as such. So, and which is the the government's version also. So therefore you have to take government's position, respect government's position, and not take something which is coming out of Western media. For a matter of fact, in US, in Europe, regularly these kind of censorship is done to ensure that something untoward doesn't happen. It doesn't become a part of the discussion. But here, if something, right, and it is not suppression, it is only for a temporary blockage, if at all. In Reuters' case, it was not that case. But anyway, if you look at it, it's a temporary suppression of...
Manish, there are some inherent contradictions in what you're saying, because Elon Musk and X have come out to say that they are actually opposed to the legacy Western media, which of course is a different narrative and a different debate altogether. But I'm going to take one point that you made. And Kapil Madan, the point is this, that if your own government is coming out to say, and I'm reading out from the government statement, that the government has not issued any fresh blocking order on 3rd of July 2025 and has no intention to block any prominent international news channels, including Reuters and Reuters' word, why would you not accept the government's word and take X's word at face value? Kapil Madan.
Now, Madhav, let me just say one thing here. There is no smoke without fire. I mean, we've seen how the government is acting in a very opaque, in a very undemocratic fashion. And let me give you a very legal perspective to this also. If you really have problem with the account, if there are credible inputs because of which you want to take action against any particular channel or social media handle or particular news channel, you should follow a procedure, and then procedure should be just, fair and reasonable. Now, in this situation, what has happened? The government does not inform the account holder. The government does not give opportunity that the person who holds the account takes any legal recourse. You surpass everything in an opaque, in a very undemocratic, in a very opaque fashion. You simply go and use these powers arbitrarily under the Information Technology Act, and you direct the intermediary. Now look at the situation. Now intermediary in its tweet, they are basically letting the people know that this is what is happening. They are also highlighting their limitation that they cannot go beyond it. And they are basically telling the account holders that you go and take appropriate measures in terms of law. I mean,
right.
I mean, this is very, very appalling. I mean, as a news, anchor yourself, okay, you would, understand how important it is for anyone. For news channel to have their accounts functioning, or for any particular citizen who has to exercise his freedom of speech. You don't follow any procedure.
Absolutely. In the true spirit of freedom of speech, Kapil Madan, you notice there are two panelists for and two panelists against the motion. But that's on a lighter note. Let me bring in Tushar Gupta. Tushar Gupta, the allegation of Kapil is that the entire process has been short-circuited. It's opaque. There's no chance for the account holder being given to be heard and to put across their point of view. Your response to Kapil?
No, the account holder can certainly approach the court, but one thing we should remember that it's not the first time that a government is reaching out to a social media platform to have certain number of accounts blocked. If you look at the transparency centers, or be it Meta, be it Twitter, be it Google, be it any other social media platform, they obviously push out reports every 6 months or every single year as to how many countries have made what sort of request for the blockage of certain accounts. And this year, we also had Operation Sindoor going on, of which information warfare was a critical part. So a lot of accounts that were blocked in India, their visibility was blocked in India, were actually Pakistani accounts. They were running under ambiguous, anonymous names. They were peddling the agenda of Pakistan, and those accounts were also blocked. But again, this is not something that is new. This happens every year. There are reports about it. The social media platforms themselves publish it, citing the request to the countries that have made it. And India has been making those reports since social media has existed. Let's not pretend this is something new that had happened. On the media channels being blocked specifically, Madhav, look, one has to give a clear reasoning as to why you're blocking any media channel, be it a foreign media channel, be it a local media channel. If you're going to block Reuters, for instance, might as well block Al Jazeera. What's stopping you from doing that? Al Jazeera continuously refers to Kashmir as a part of it as Azad Kashmir. It refers to POK as Azad Kashmir. So why not block it? So the government has to come out with a consistent policy when it comes to blocking these accounts in India, their visibility. There needs to be a set pattern of rules. That is where I agree with Kapil.
There has to be a set pattern of rules. We're all in agreement on that. I want to quickly bring in Anish on that. Anish, this is where the IT ministry has come in and has accused X of, quote unquote, unnecessarily exploiting technicalities, delaying the unblocking of Reuters despite follow-ups. Now, is this a case of bureaucratic miscommunication, or do you see a larger pattern of opacity in content regulation?
Madhav, our IT Act is a joke, and the way in which we approach the internet belongs to the last century. The reality is that the government's new Sahyog portal does not function. Mass requests are sent to social media agencies to take down accounts. If I'm not wrong, the Internet Freedom Foundation has revealed that around 30,000 such requests were put out in the span of 4 or 5 years. So, in such circumstances, the government simply does not understand how to regulate the internet. You know, this is exactly what happened with India's Got Latent. They shut down the show and immediately 1,000 copies of it came through and more people watched that show than would have if they had not blocked it. So, in many ways, our government does not know how to block these handles effectively. Now, my second problem is, instead of blocking 30,000 Twitter handles, can you focus on preventing explosives from being sold on Amazon, which are leading to the Pulwama attack? What is the government busy in doing? So the misplaced priorities of this government would be funny if they didn't have such real consequences. And my final point I want to make here, Madhav, which is a very simple point, is that even today, when you block a news organization like Reuters, the repercussions are severe. There should be a detailed inquiry into this because it seems to be either a bureaucratic slip-up on the Indian end or purposeful sabotage on X's end. If it's purposeful sabotage on X's end,
let me bring in Manish. Manish, is it possible that there is purposeful sabotage on X's end? Because, you know, X's statement has made a pretty whopping claim. And the claim is this, that India allegedly, according to X, has ordered the blocking of 2,355 accounts, including Reuters, on July 3rd for alleged non-compliance with the IT Act. The government has denied this, but that's a very, very serious claim for anyone to be making, whether X or otherwise.
No, I think I would beg, humbly, in fact, to differ. Because I do not trust even X in that matter. I don't feel that it's a holy cow, that whatever comes from X, or for that matter, any American corporation, looking at the geopolitical situation right now, and they are hell-bent of a lot of times they really, you have been privy to a lot of information where they are trying to really put India in a pretty bad light, right? And even in Reuters, like in 2023-24, the kind of report they came up, the whole thing came up as if it's happening in India, and in India is putting up that hire for that report which came up. So I don't trust exactly what has happened. I think it might be an inadvertent error, and it might have just got blocked for a day. But then X has to explain a lot. Did it do it deliberately? 21 hours delay in terms of restoring Reuters. And if government had wanted to really block it, then as I mentioned earlier, 2 of its subsidiary channels, why were they not blocked? So I don't understand. And I really don't believe that it is there. It could be a part of one.
We'll put that question to Kapil. Kapil, if Reuters was actually the target, then why were the subsidiaries not targeted? That's one question. And the second question, while it's very well for Congress leaders to come out and say there's censorship today, the BJP will come out and ask, what about Congress's own track record on censorship, whether it's Kishore Kumar during emergency, whether it is Titanic versus, there are a lot of examples during Congress regime as well of censorship. Not that justifies it today.
Now, Madhav, I think you have, very candidly and fairly answered. If there have been a wrong in the past, that does not justify any wrong here. And let me also take a moment to, respond to my good friend Tushar here. Tushar, very, smartly has, included the issue of Sindoor and said that during the Operation Sindoor, there were some information warfare and certain accounts needs to be blocked. And I would just say, he don't belong to the BJP, but then again, Pakistan appears to be the all-weather shield of, BJP and including the supporters of the BJP, because every issue that you will raise, every time you will ask the question to the government, either the BJP or, the people supporting the BJP would call you anti-national, or they would say that you are basically propagating the narrative set by Pakistan. So I think it's high time we should, be talking about.
But when it comes to Pakistan, Kapil, I have a slightly different stand. We need to be very, very careful. Whether government or opposition doesn't matter. It's a time when we are in conflict. Obviously, one has to be careful and measured in the kind of responses, because clearly when it comes to our own national security, I think the public at large, which is looking at the kind of conflict and terror attacks coming in from across the border, has a very different view. But in the spirit of asking you that question, let me also put that question across to Tushar, because Tushar, recently we saw the unblocking of certain accounts of people who had spread propaganda poison against India. Those same individuals' accounts were unblocked. So many would ask that, what is happening as far as our own handling of social media is concerned? Is there a much larger problem at play here?
Absolutely, Madhav. And I was as livid as any Indian would be on the unblocking of those accounts. But it turns out the accounts were blocked again within a few hours, probably in less than 12 hours. Now, I don't know really what happened, but my best guess is that when the government first interacted with these social media platforms sometime around April end, May beginning, they were given a cutoff date of July 1. That's my best guess. I'm not saying this is what happened, but that is what my understanding tells me. And when the cutoff date hit, I think some bureaucrat or someone within the government just forgot to extend that ban. And when the outcry followed, the ban was immediately followed up with. So that's my best understanding. But again, Madhav, forget, it's not about random accounts. Digital economy has a value. We are very picky about who has access to a physical market when it comes to India. All our governments, be it the Congress, be it the BJP, they're very selective about India's physical market access. But we have to display the same insecurity, if I might use that word, when it also comes to digital market access. Because the kind of magnitude India's digital market has, it can make or break fortunes. It's that simple. And if Pakistanis are going to profit off our digital market, that is something we can definitely not allow, be it anonymous accounts, be it celebrity accounts, be it political accounts. We have to be very clear on that front.
All right. Anish, I want you to come in on this because, at the end of the day, I think that's a very, very valid concern. India is a massive, massive market. There will always be attempts for people to try and raise questions on the government, to raise questions on India as a whole, and try and hurt brand India, particularly when India is on the rise. Is that a valid concern or not?
Madhav, absolutely, and this is where we're all on the same page, and I agree completely with Tushar, which is why I'm very surprised that what we have today is not a crisis of intent, but a crisis of competence. Tushar, if you're right, and this bureaucrat forgot to sort of extend this beyond the 1st of July, that makes us look like a bunch of fools. What is the ministry doing? What is MeitY doing? What are the bureaucrats sitting there who are in charge of this policy doing? We really need to have some standards, some accountability, and some transparency about how these decisions are being made. Otherwise, we're looking like fools on the world stage.
Tushar, you want to respond to that?
No, again, we would have looked like someone who's not caring about our digital market access had we not got those accounts blocked. We have got those accounts blocked. In fact, in between, there was a movie that came in which had a Pakistani actor in it. It was not allowed release in India. So we are very clear as to where we want to go from here. The abeyance of Indus Water Treaty, to give you another example, it's very clear where we want to go with Pakistan. But I think even as common Indians, we must realize what our own digital market access can do for the fortunes of any country, be it an enemy country. And this is where we have to realize where the threat is from. I agree with Anish that the government needs to be more careful about the bans and unblocking of these accounts. Even if 12 hours is a short time, it's a time good enough to cause any sort of damage when it comes to information warfare. But for the longer term, for the longer run, we have to ensure our digital market access is not open to Pakistan or any user with anti-national interest or interest against India. That's it.
Kapil Madan, you want to come in on that? Because here's national interest at play over here as well. It's not just about the positions that we take. Of course, freedom of speech is something that we all have to value, whichever side of the aisle we may be on. But at the end of the day, there could be a lot of potential propaganda against India that could also be doing the rounds. Kapil.
Madhav, let's be very clear. Any action taken by the government in national interest, everyone is supporting the government. Every Indian, every citizen will support the government if they intend or if they want to do anything that is, in the national interest. But the question is, when you mix your political interest and you take a refuge of national interest.
But Kapil, the same will be said about statements like is that in national interest to make such comments?
Madhav, why are you interrupting, Madhav? You never interrupted and you never interrupt when, someone is speaking.
I'm asking you a counter to your point, the point that you are making.
Allow me to complete, Madhav. If I am not even completed, how can there be a counter? Allow me to
we have limited time, 20 seconds, complete your point.
So all I'm saying is that, yes, everyone is supporting the government, but you cannot take refuge and under the garb of national interest, you cannot take your, decision based on your, political liking.
Quick response, Manish, 10 seconds. Quick response. Political interest in the garb of national interest, you can't curb freedom of speech. Quick response, Manish.
Absolutely not. This government, more than any government in this in our country, has had national interest very, very high on priority. And that Operation Sindoor, as well as the earlier operations of this government, has showed that national interest comes first. So absolutely nobody can question the integrity of this government.
All right.
And this government has always kept politics
Then
as
why-
well as national
then why
interest
Trump made
very, very
the,
different from
ceasefire
each
and
other.
All right, let's leave it there. We are completely out of time. Tushar Gupta, Manish Baryar, Kapil Madan, Anish Gawande. I want to thank all of you for joining us. And certainly, of course, the political controversy surrounding the blocking or unblocking of these handles is only expected to continue in context of the freedom of speech debate. Thanks so much for joining us this evening.
The News Hour at 10.